using artificial intelligence.
A lot to do with deep fake media that's being circulated on the internet.
Misinformation is related to like the electoral process. They want to undermine confidence in democratic processes.
With 2023 in the rearview mirror and 2024 unfolding before us, the upcoming year is expected to be anything but slow. 2024 will be the biggest election year in history. Some 76 countries, almost half the world's population, will be electing new leaders. India will hold general elections in April and May, the European Union will hold European Parliament elections in June, and the United States will elect a new president in November. The UK general election is also likely to take place. These are just a few examples of the many countries having elections this year. And what comes with elections? Misinformation, of course. Take the build up to the Taiwanese election on January 13th. This clip circulated on social media, showing Lai Ching-te, Taiwan's vice president and the Democratic Progressive Party's presidential nominee. In the clip, he declares that his primary opposition candidates from both the Kuomintang and Taiwan People's Party are Taiwan's best bet for president and vice president. However, the clip is a fake, generated by AI to mimic the vice president's voice. So many elections promises a busy year ahead, and the Taiwan deepfake situation highlights a growing challenge for the year. The reality is that the spread of misinformation and disinformation isn't slowing down, and we'll likely see similar disinformation circulate throughout the year's elections. So what misinformation or disinformation can we expect to see in 2024? To get a better grasp of what lies ahead in the mis and disinfo sphere, I spoke to our own fact-checking heads at Logically Facts about their expectations.
We will definitely see much more sophisticated tools using the artificial intelligence and different technologies to deceive the public. We already see a lot of examples coming out from various platforms where they are struggling to find the most appropriate measures to respond to this increasing challenges coming with the generative AI. So I think there's going to be a year where fact checkers will be proving themselves as the trusted experts and the domain experts when it comes to helping the public to sort fact from fiction.
A lot to do with deep fake media that's being circulated on the internet. It's not just videos anymore, it's also audio files that are being now circulated. Audio files of politicians which are being shared to claim that they've said something about their party, which is probably being used, certain manner to portray them in a certain light. And it's obviously very difficult sometimes when it comes to identifying these deepfake audios and visuals.
In 2020, one of the main misinformation for the US elections was the electoral fraud. That was the main false claim. After that, we saw that repeated in other elections happening in other countries. So this is an example of how misinformation travel fast and far in going from one country to another. Misinformation and disinformation they don't know borders. So I think this is going to be one of the main problems that we will have to face this year.
Basically, AI-generated images, audio, and footage are looking to be the main types of disinformation aiming to undermine democratic elections. So what other challenges did disinformation present in past elections and global events?
The volume of misinformation that we have seen last year was just a reminder for what is waiting for us in the Europe elections this year. We've seen a lot of efforts put out there by repeat offenders trying to overcome the measures that the platforms can force upon them.
Israel-Hamas war, I think definitely that's something everybody said, and there's nothing new that I'm saying. It was definitely a watershed moment. Kind of misinformation and the amount of misinformation that we've seen around Israel-Hamas war, it was not just overwhelming, but it's also, it basically was a very big challenge for fact checkers, because in a situation where you don't have boots on the ground, when it's hard to verify information, it becomes very easy for misinformation to proliferate. And I think that's what we saw happening with Israel-Hamas war.
Another challenge facing fact-checkers dealing with 2024's election disinfo is cutbacks. Past years have seen social media platforms cut back on staff and policies that safeguarded against mis and disinformation. After taking over Twitter, now X, Elon Musk fired many of the staff that handled mis and disinformation on the platform. Meta's 2023 Year of Efficiency also saw layoffs. Several staff members who worked on tackling disinformation and harassment on the platform were also let go. With so many layoffs and challenges, harmful content that could threaten and undermine democracy looks like it's going to be rampant. Okay, so what have we learned, and what are we going to do about these upcoming challenges? Don't worry, it's not all doom and gloom. The past has taught us a lot, and with those lessons in mind, we have a better understanding of how to tackle disinformation and amplify accurate factual information. Here's what Logically Facts has learned and how we're preparing for the year ahead.
Collaborations really work and they go a long way. Again, I'm going to use the example of Manipur. When I said that one major challenge that we faced was language. Language was a barrier because not everybody, at least in our team, understood the language. So also to put information into context was difficult. How do you do that? You need local nuance. You need to understand the history. You need to understand why two communities are fighting. What is the reason? You basically need to know the nuances. So it's very important that there are collaborations. Now, those collaborations could be with independent journalists. Those collaborations could be with news organizations. Those collaborations could be with fact-checking organizations. Because instead of reinventing the wheel, you can rely on somebody else's expertise, and you can ensure that you're able to put out verified information to your users much faster.
We have learned from previous elections what are the main misinfo claims, right? We have mentioned already one of the main false claims that we see over and over, and I call it it's a classic. It's like electoral fraud, everything related to the electoral process, from people questioning about the color of the ballot, the time that you can go and vote, voting by mail, by post, the whole thing is kind of you see that over and over again. So we are going to prepare for that. We can create pre-banks, we can create explainers of how the electoral process works, what you can and you cannot do. For example, the 10 misleading claims that you may see in the elections and you shouldn't fall for. We have done this already, and I think those are the main learnings of we know some of the stuff that could come. It doesn't mean we cannot read the future, but we can try to prepare as much as we can.
And it's not just Logically Facts that are ready for the disinfo battle. The EU has been building up legislative safeguards with the Digital Services Act. It comes into force at the beginning of 2024 and addresses systemic online risks like disinformation. The DSA requires platforms to assess risks stemming from the design or function of their servers, and then take measures to limit those risks. This includes measures to protect electoral processes. In December, the EU also reached a provisional deal on its long-awaited AI Act. This act is expected to set a global standard for regulating the use of AI. Beside the AI-generated content and election disinformation becoming more common, the year will no doubt see other unpredictable events unfold.